My name is Valerie, 29 years old, and I never thought I would see my own blood splash across a wedding boutique floor. The diamond on my sister Amanda's engagement ring sliced my cheek open when she slapped me, silencing the entire shop. For 7 months, I had been nothing but an ATM for her $100,000 wedding. The $10,000 designer gown she had just chosen was charged to my platinum card. That slap was my awakening. Where are you watching from today? Hit subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to someone who was using you, because my breaking point was about to change everything. Growing up in suburban Boston, Amanda and I were once inseparable. Just 2 years apart, we built snow forts in winter that became our secret kingdoms, defended each other fiercely from neighborhood bullies, and shared clothes, secrets, and dreams. Our childhood photos show us with matching gap-toothed smiles, her arm always protectively around my shoulders. I looked up to her with the kind of pure admiration only a little sister can feel. Our family dynamic was pretty clear from early on. Our father, a corporate lawyer, was rarely home, and when he was, he retreated behind newspaper pages or locked office doors. Our mother, obsessed with appearances and social climbing, clearly favored Amanda. While she criticized my academic achievements as showing off, she praised Amanda's social popularity as building important connections. Valerie is smart, but Amanda has real star quality, she would tell her friends, not bothering to lower her voice when I was within earshot. It hurt, but I found solace in books and achievements, while Amanda thrived on being the golden child. As we grew older, our paths naturally diverged. I focused on academics, eventually earning a scholarship to Northwestern University, where I studied finance. Amanda attended Boston College, focusing less on grades and more on building a social network. While I was organizing study groups, she was planning parties that attracted the children of Boston's elite. After graduation, I secured a position as a financial analyst with a prestigious firm in Chicago, steadily building my career with careful planning and hard work. Amanda, with her natural charisma and connections, landed in public relations for luxury brands in Boston. She became the person who ensured the right celebrities were seen with the right products at the right events. Her Instagram became a carefully curated showcase of glamorous events, designer clothes, and influential people. During one particularly cold Chicago December, I flew home for Christmas, dreading the usual subtle comparisons from our mother about my practical wardrobe, lack of romantic prospects, and boring job. What I didn't expect was the elaborate dinner setup complete with professional photography. "Why is there a photographer?" I whispered to my father, who looked uncomfortable in a new suit. "Your mother arranged it. Something special happening tonight," he mumbled, checking his watch. When Amanda arrived with Jackson, I immediately noticed something different. He was tall, conventionally handsome in that prep school way, and carried himself with the entitled confidence of old money, pretending to be self-made. He worked in finance too, though he spoke vaguely about his role when I asked specifics. "We met at the Children's Hospital charity gala," Amanda explained, touching his arm possessively. Jackson was the biggest donor of the evening. Dinner was a carefully orchestrated performance, with my mother directing conversation toward Jackson's family connections, vacation properties, and future prospects. As dessert was served, he dropped to one knee beside the table, producing a ring box. "Amanda Elizabeth, you have brought such joy into my life. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" The diamond was enormous, catching the light from every angle as Amanda gasped theatrically. The photographer captured every moment, including my forced smile as glasses clinked in celebration. Later that night, Amanda cornered me in our childhood bedroom, eyes shining. "Val, I need you to be my maid of honor," she said, clutching my hands tightly. "No one knows me like you do, please say yes." Tears glistened in her eyes, reminding me of the sister I'd grown up with, not the carefully polished woman she'd become. For a moment I felt that childhood connection again, and agreed without hesitation. 2 days later we had our first wedding planning session. Amanda, our mother, and I sat at the dining room table surrounded by bridal magazines. The budget discussion came up quickly. I was thinking $30,000 should cover everything I suggested, having researched average wedding costs. That would still allow for a beautiful venue, flowers, food, and all the essentials. Amanda and our mother exchanged a look. "Darling, that might cover the flowers alone," our mother said with a laugh. "This is going to be the social event of the season." "Jackson and I are thinking more along the lines of 60,000 minimum," Amanda added. I raised my eyebrows. "That's a lot of money. Will Jackson's parents be contributing?" A flicker of something crossed Amanda's face before she composed herself. "Actually, Jackson is having some temporary cash flow issues. His trust fund has certain restrictions, and the money from his last investment project is tied up for a few months. We'll figure it out," our mother said dismissively. That evening, Amanda came to my room again, perching on the edge of my bed like we used to during our late-night talks. "Val, I know we haven't been as close these past few years," she said softly, "and I really want this wedding to bring us back together." Her voice cracked slightly, "But I'm worried about the finances. Jackson's situation is only temporary, but we need to place deposits now to secure the vendors we want. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." I looked at my sister, remembering how she had once stood up for me against bullies, helped me prepare for my first date, held my hand at our grandmother's funeral. Despite our growing distance, she was still my sister. "I can help with some of the expenses," I offered. "I've been saving for a while. As long as you and Jackson pay me back once his funds free up." The relief and gratitude on her face seemed genuine. "You're the best sister anyone could ask for," she said, hugging me tightly. The next day, I added her as an authorized user on my platinum card with a written agreement about repayment terms. I thought I was rebuilding our relationship. I couldn't have known I was actually signing up for financial and emotional exploitation that would eventually cost me nearly everything. The wedding was scheduled for 9 months later in September, at what was initially going to be a charming country club outside Boston. Amanda created a detailed timeline for all the planning milestones, and I dutifully flew from Chicago to Boston every few weeks for important decisions and events. During my first trip back, I brought a carefully prepared budget spreadsheet color-coded by category with maximum amounts allocated for each vendor. Amanda glanced at it for approximately 10 seconds before pushing it aside. "This is sweet, Val, but way too restrictive. My wedding needs to have room for inspiration and spontaneity, but we agreed on a general budget," I reminded her. "If we don't track expenses, things could get out of hand quickly." She reached across the table and patted my hand condescendingly. "This is why you're good with money and I'm good with people. Just trust me, okay?" The first real warning sign came with the bridesmaid dresses. Amanda initially selected reasonably priced gowns at $200 each, but when we arrived for the fitting, she had completely changed her mind. "I found these." Instead, she announced, pointing to significantly more elaborate dresses with a $400 price tag. I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene in front of the other bridesmaids, Catherine, Jasmine, Tiffany, and Stephanie, who were all Amanda's friends from college or work. They were cut from the same cloth as her, polished, pretty, and subtly judgmental. "I hear financial analysis is very stable," Catherine said to me during the fitting. Her emphasis making it clear stable was code for boring. "Do you ever worry about eye strain from staring at spreadsheets all day?" Jasmine asked with exaggerated concern. "I notice you've got some fine lines starting already." Their comments were always delivered with sweet smiles, making it impossible to call them out without seeming oversensitive. Amanda never defended me. 3 weeks later, Amanda texted that she had changed her mind again. The new bridesmaid dresses were $700 each, and we needed to place the order immediately to ensure delivery. This pattern repeated with every vendor. Amanda would agree to one option, then upgrade to something significantly more expensive without consulting me first. She was rude to florists, caterers, and venue staff, leaving me to smooth things over with apologies and extra tips, all charged to my card. The cake tasting became a major point of contention. Amanda scheduled it on a Tuesday at 11:00 in the morning despite knowing I had an important quarterly presentation at work that day. "You need to reschedule your work thing," she insisted over the phone. "This cake tasting has been impossible to book. The baker is in demand and this is his only opening." "Amanda, I can't. This presentation is crucial for my promotion consideration. Can we move the tasting to Wednesday?" "No." "God, Valerie, it's like you don't even care about my wedding. I've made sacrifices for you my whole life. Remember when I skipped Brittany's Sweet 16 party to come to your debate championship? And now you can't even adjust your schedule for the most important day of my life." The emotional manipulation worked. I recognized it but still felt the guilt she intended to provoke. I ended up having my colleague cover part of my presentation, damaging my professional reputation. My boss called me into his office afterward. "Everything okay, Valerie? You've seemed distracted lately. Your work is slipping." I assured him everything was fine, but it wasn't. The next major shock came when Amanda announced they were changing the venue from the country club to an exclusive luxury resort on Cape Cod. The country club just wasn't special enough. She explained this resort has been featured in Wedding Dreams magazine 3 times. What she didn't mention was that the resort cost 4 times as much, required a minimum $50,000 food and beverage commitment, and was only available if we moved the wedding date up by 2 weeks, requiring all new save-the-date cards to be printed and sent. The guest list, originally around 150 people, mysteriously expanded to over 300. "We can't exclude Jackson's parents' business associates," Amanda explained when I questioned the increase. and mother has connections we need to maintain. Anxiety began to gnaw at me constantly. I was checking my credit card balance obsessively, watching as charges from vendors I didn't recognize appeared regularly. When I calculated the projected final cost based on current spending and remaining expenses, the number exceeded $100,000. My savings were being depleted rapidly to make the monthly payments, and Amanda had yet to reimburse me for anything. Jackson's funds should be released any day now became her constant refrain whenever I brought up repayment. I tried to believe her, but the knot in my stomach grew tighter with each passing week. In July, 3 months before the wedding, I traveled to New York for a business conference. By coincidence, the hotel where my company booked me was just a few blocks from where Jackson supposedly worked. I decided to surprise them both with dinner, hoping also to have a frank conversation about the mounting wedding expenses. After my last conference session, I walked toward Jackson's office building, planning to meet him as he left work. As I approached, I spotted a familiar figure through the window of an upscale restaurant across the street. Amanda was sitting at a corner table, laughing, her hand resting on Jackson's arm. I froze, not wanting to interrupt what looked like a romantic dinner but curious about their conversation. I moved closer to the restaurant window, positioning myself where I could see them, but they couldn't easily spot me. What I overheard changed everything. The contractor says the Hamptons house will be ready right after the wedding, Jackson was saying, swirling an expensive-looking red wine in his glass. Just in time for us to spend a weekend there before the Malders' honeymoon. Amanda beamed. Perfect, I already have ideas for furnishing the guest rooms. Valerie will never be invited, of course. Could you imagine her practical suggestions ruining my design vision? They both laughed and I felt my heart sink to my stomach. Speaking of your sister, Jackson continued, lowering his voice slightly. How much more do you think you can get her to cover? My parents are asking when we're going to stop charging things to her card. Amanda rolled her eyes. They worry too much. Valerie is making 6 figures and has no life. She might as well put that money to good use. Besides, she offered to help. She offered to help not to pay for everything, Jackson pointed out, though he was smiling. But I have to admit, upgrading to the seafood tower for the cocktail hour without spending our own money does feel pretty good. I felt physically ill. Stepping back from the window, I leaned against a nearby building trying to process what I just heard. There was no cash flow problem. There were no tied-up investments. They had been lying to me from the beginning, deliberately exploiting my generosity. Curiosity and anger propelled me to follow them at a distance when they left the restaurant. They walked 6 blocks to a luxury apartment building with a doorman who greeted them by name. This was clearly not a temporary arrangement, but their permanent residence. Maury lies. The next morning I texted Amanda asking to meet for coffee before I flew back to Chicago. She agreed, probably assuming I wanted to discuss more wedding details. The cafe was crowded, which worked in my favor. Public settings make scenes less likely. I saw you and Jackson having dinner last night, I said once our coffees arrived. I was in town for a conference and thought I'd surprise you. Her expression flickered momentarily before she composed herself. Oh, you should have joined us, it was just a quick bite. I also overheard your conversation about the Hamptons house and the Maldives honeymoon. The color drained from her face. Val, I can explain, please do. Explain why you told me Jackson had financial problems when you're buying a vacation home. Explain why I'm paying for your wedding when you clearly have money. It's not what you think, she stammered. That's Jackson's parents' house, not ours, and the honeymoon is their gift to us. When I didn't respond, she switched tactics. Okay, maybe Jackson exaggerated his financial situation a little bit. He was embarrassed. His parents are helping us, but they have certain expectations about the wedding that require more investment than we initially planned. You know how family pressure can be. When that explanation didn't seem to be working, tears filled her eyes. I'm so sorry, Val. Wedding planning is more stressful than I ever imagined. Sometimes I can't even remember what I've told people because there are so many details to manage. Can you forgive me? I promise complete transparency about finances from now on. I wanted to believe her desperately. The alternative was accepting that my own sister had been callously using me. From now on we discuss every expense before it happens, I said firmly. And I need a payment plan for what you've already charged. Absolutely, she agreed quickly. Jackson will sort it out as soon as I tell him we talked. I flew back to Chicago, feeling cautiously hopeful that we had cleared the air. That hope lasted exactly 8 days. The charges continued to appear on my card. Premium flowers flown in from Holland, imported champagne at $300 per bottle, a celebrity DJ whose deposit alone was $5,000. Each time the charge would appear before Amanda mentioned it, always with some excuse about last-minute availability or unexpected opportunity. When I called to confront her, she would either let it go to voicemail or rush through the conversation, always ending with, "Can we talk later? I'm just walking into a meeting." I tried setting explicit spending limits, which she agreed to enthusiastically on the phone, then completely ignored in practice. Eventually, I learned from a chatty florist that Amanda had given all the vendors the same instruction: provide the best of everything, no matter the cost. "Your sister specifically said not to bother her with details or prices," the florist told me cheerfully. "She said you'd be handling all the financial aspects and to send all the invoices directly to you. She's so lucky to have such a generous sister." The betrayal cut deep. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the deliberate deception, the calculated exploitation of my love and trust. August arrived, and with it came the final dress fitting at an exclusive boutique in downtown Chicago. Amanda had insisted on buying her gown in my city so I could be involved, which I had initially seen as a thoughtful gesture. The boutique was the kind of place where crystal chandeliers hung from high-ceiling champagne was served in real flutes, and price tags were discreetly absent from the merchandise. Our mother flew in specially for the occasion, and the entire wedding party was scheduled to attend. I arrived exactly at the appointed time, dressed in what I thought was an appropriately nice outfit: tailored pants, a silk blouse, and low heels. I knew something was off the moment I walked in. Amanda, our mother, and all 4 bridesmaids were already there, dressed in matching pale pink dresses and heels, taking group photos for social media. No one had mentioned a dress code to me. "Valerie," finally our mother said, kissing my cheeks. Her eyes scanned my outfit. "Couldn't you have dressed better for such a special occasion? This is going on Amanda's wedding Instagram." "No one told me about coordinating outfits," I said quietly, feeling immediately out of place. Amanda waved dismissively. "I'm sure I mentioned it. You've been so busy with work lately you probably forgot." The boutique owner, a rail, thin woman with an intimidating updo, greeted Amanda like they were old friends. "The bride is here. Let's get you some champagne while we prepare the gowns for viewing." She barely glanced at me despite Amanda introducing me as both her sister and the maid of honor. The bridesmaids clustered around Amanda, exclaiming over the boutique's elegance. When I tried to join the conversation, Catherine cut me off mid-sentence. "Amanda, tell them about the welcome bags you're planning," she said loudly, turning her back to me. I caught Jasmine and Tiffany exchanging smirks and heard Stephanie whisper something that made them laugh. I retreated to a small velvet sofa, feeling increasingly like an unwelcome intruder rather than an honored guest. The dressing process began with Amanda being escorted to a large private dressing room. The rest of us were instructed to wait in the viewing area where more champagne and delicate pastries were served. Our mother talked non-stop about the wedding details, the important guests who had RSVP'd, and how this would be the society event of the season. Amanda emerged in the first gown, a sleek satin design with a dramatic train. Everyone gasped appropriately, but she frowned at her reflection. "It's not quite right, I need something more statement-making." The second dress had intricate beadwork. The third featured French lace. The fourth was a voluminous ball gown with a sweetheart neckline. With each dress the compliments grew more effusive, while Amanda grew more critical. "I just don't feel like a princess in this one either," she sighed after the fourth gown. The boutique owner disappeared briefly, returning with a knowing smile. "I've been saving this one. It just arrived from the designer yesterday. It's a custom Vera Wang that another bride ordered but backed out of her wedding. With some minor alterations, it would be perfect for you." The gown she brought out was admittedly breathtaking. Hand-embroidered crystals caught the light, creating the illusion that Amanda was wrapped in stars as she moved. The structured bodice gave way to layers of ethereal tulle that seemed to float around her. Even I had to admit she looked stunning. "This is it," Amanda whispered, turning slowly before the mirror. "This is my dress." "Absolutely perfect," our mother agreed, wiping away tears. The boutique owner smiled triumphantly. "This particular gown is quite special. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, and since it's a runway sample with custom elements, it does come at a premium. $10,000 with the alterations included." I couldn't stop myself. $10,000, Amanda. That's twice the budget we discussed for the dress. The room went silent. Amanda's reflection stared at mine in the mirror, her expression hardening. "Budget? Are you seriously bringing up a budget right now during this moment?" "I'm just saying we agreed on a limit for the dress," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "We've already gone over budget on almost everything else." Amanda whirled around to face me directly, the beautiful dress swishing angrily around her. "Are you trying to ruin my special day?" Her voice rose with each word. "Is that what this is about?" "Of course not. I just think we need to be reasonable about expenses." "Reasonable," she spat the word. "What would you know about wedding planning? When was the last time you even went on a date?" You'll probably never get married yourself, so stop trying to ruin this for me just because you're jealous." The boutique fell completely silent. Even the staff had frozen in place watching the drama unfold. "I'm not jealous," I said quietly. "I'm concerned about the cost. You and Jackson promised to repay me, but the charges keep growing and I haven't seen $1 from either of you." Something dark flashed in Amanda's eyes. "You've always been like this, always keeping score, always so concerned about yourself. You've never truly supported me in anything. That's not true." "I've supported you in everything, including this wedding that I'm paying for. Because you have nothing better to spend your money on," she shouted. "Your empty apartment, your boring life, your non-existent social circle. I'm giving you the opportunity to be part of something beautiful and important, and you're bean counting." Her words stung because they targeted my deepest insecurities. Before I could respond, she stepped closer. "You've always been jealous because you know you'll never have what I have," she hissed. And then it happened. Her hand flew up and struck me hard across the face, the massive diamond on her engagement ring slicing into my cheek. I felt the sharp sting immediately followed by warmth as blood began to trickle down my face. Gasps echoed through the boutique. I raised my hand to my cheek, pulling it away to see my fingers smeared with blood. Drops splattered onto the boutique's pristine white carpet. Instead of showing concern, Amanda looked horrified at the scene I was creating. Our mother rushed to her side, putting an arm around her shoulders. "Amanda, darling, calm down, think of your blood pressure," she soothed, not sparing me a glance despite the fact that I was the one literally bleeding. "Get out, Amanda," said her voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my fitting, get out of my wedding. You're still paying for it, but I don't want to see your face again." I stood there, blood now dripping steadily from my cut, unable to believe what had just happened. The boutique owner appeared with a small towel, handing it to me without meeting my eyes. "Perhaps it would be best if you did step outside," she suggested quietly. As I walked toward the door, shaking and holding the rapidly re-ending towel to my face, I heard our mother say, "Don't worry, dear. Well, make sure Stephanie takes over as maid of honor. The dresses can be altered." Not one person asked if I was okay or needed medical attention. I made it to my car before the tears came, using the bridesmaid dress I'd brought for alterations to apply pressure to my bleeding cheek. As I sat there trying to compose myself, my phone pinged with a text from Amanda. "Don't forget to pay the balance for the dress tomorrow. And you're still responsible for the rehearsal dinner. Just because you're not in the wedding doesn't mean your financial obligations have changed." No apology, no concern, just a reminder to pay. Something inside me shattered in that moment, something that could never be repaired. My apartment had always been my sanctuary, modern minimalist with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. It was the place I retreated to after long days analyzing financial data. Now it felt like a prison, every corner, a reminder of how much I had sacrificed to create this carefully curated life that Amanda had so casually dismissed as empty and boring. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, examining the cut on my face. It was deep enough to need stitches, which I'd gotten at an urgent care center on the way home. The doctor had assured me it would heal with minimal scarring if I was careful. But right now, the angry red line bicting my cheek felt like a permanent mark of my sister's betrayal. Moving to my home office, I opened my laptop and began going through credit card statements, creating a detailed spreadsheet of every wedding-related expense over the past 7 months. The total made me physically ill, $78,945.32, and that was just what had been spent so far. When I calculated the remaining deposits and balances due for vendors already booked, the projected final cost would exceed $120,000. For a wedding, I was now banned from attending. I checked my bank accounts. My emergency fund was nearly depleted from making the monthly credit card payments. My investment accounts remained untouched, but accessing them would incur penalties and taxes. I had been financially responsible my entire adult life, and in just 7 months my sister had nearly ruined me. As I sat staring at the numbers, my phone pinged with a notification, a group text I didn't recognize. Opening it, I realized it was a thread between Amanda and her bridesmaids, and I had been accidentally included. "Can you believe Val tried to limit my dress budget?" Amanda had written as if she has any idea what a proper wedding should look like. "Have you seen how she dresses?" The responses from the bridesmaids were immediate and cruel. "She probably thinks a wedding should be held in a library with spreadsheets as centerpieces," Catherine wrote, adding laughing emojis. "Remember when she suggested using potted plants instead of flower arrangements so guests could take them home? I nearly died," added Tiffany. There were screenshots of my earnest wedding suggestions with mocking comments. They had been laughing at me for months behind my back. But what broke me completely was discovering Amanda's Instagram posts about the wedding. In caption after caption, she implied or directly stated that she and Jackson were paying for everything themselves. When you work hard enough to give yourself the wedding of your dreams, read one, beneath a photo of Amanda examining expensive floral arrangements. Some people might think we're extravagant, but we believe in investing in memories that will last a lifetime, said another, accompanying a video of champagne being poured over a tower of glasses. The lies, the mockery, the exploitation, all crystallized into a cold, hard reality. My sister saw me as nothing more than a resource to be drained for her benefit. Not as family, not as someone to love or respect, just as a means to an end. I called Diana, a lawyer friend from college, explaining the situation as calmly as I could. "Do you have anything in writing about their agreement to pay you back?" she asked after listening to my story. "Yes, I have the original agreement we signed, plus text messages where she acknowledges the debt." "That's good. Verbal agreements can be binding in some cases. But having written evidence strengthens your position considerably. What about the fact that they clearly lied about their financial situation to manipulate me?" Diana's voice grew more confident. "That changes things. That could constitute fraud. If you can prove they deliberately misrepresented their financial situation to induce you to pay for things, you might have a case not just for repayment but for damages. What would you recommend I do?" "I can send them a formal letter demanding repayment of all expenses to date and outlining the potential legal consequences if they refuse." I thought about it. A legal demand letter would certainly get their attention, but I realized something important I didn't want, just repayment. The money was significant, yes, but what Amanda had taken from me went far beyond dollars. She had taken my trust, my familial bond, my self-respect. "Let me think about it," I told Diana. "I'll get back to you tomorrow." After hanging up, I began researching my options. As the primary card holder, I could cancel the card entirely or report it as compromised, which would invalidate Amanda's authorized user card. I could cancel scheduled payments to vendors. I could contact the vendors directly and explain the situation. The question wasn't whether I could do these things, but whether I should. The moral implications weighed heavily. Would I be stooping to Amanda's level by ruining her wedding? Would I regret such a drastic action? What about the innocent vendors who had provided services in good faith? I called my therapist for an emergency phone session explaining the situation and my conflicted feelings. "What happened at that boutique was abuse, Valerie," she said firmly. "Both physical and emotional. And it sounds like it's part of a pattern of exploitation and manipulation that's been going on for months." "But she's still my sister," I said weakly. "Family relationships don't give people the right to exploit or harm you. You have every right to protect yourself financially and emotionally. If I cancel everything now, the wedding will be ruined. There are only 6 weeks left. Ask yourself this. If a friend told you this story about herself, what would you advise her to do? Would you tell her to continue allowing herself to be used and abused?" She was right. If any friend had come to me with this situation, I would have told her to cut ties immediately and protect herself. "Before you take any action," my therapist advised, document everything. Download all statements, save all texts and emails, take screenshots of social media posts. Protect yourself by creating a record. I spent the next 2 hours doing exactly that, saving everything to a secure cloud folder. Then I drafted a detailed email to my parents explaining what had happened, including the slap, the cut requiring stitches, and the financial exploitation. I attached photos of my injured face, screenshots of Amanda's mocking text messages, and a spreadsheet showing the true cost of the wedding. I didn't send it yet, but having it ready gave me a sense of protection. For 3 hours I sat at my desk, alternating between rage, grief, and uncertainty. The family I had known and loved, my entire life, seemed suddenly like strangers. Had they always seen me as nothing but a resource? Had Amanda always resented me beneath her sisterly facade? As midnight approached, I opened my banking app and navigated to the card management section. My finger hovered over the cancel card button as 7 months of exploitation flashed through my mind. The condescension, the lies, the mockery, the physical assault, the blood dripping onto pristine white carpet, and not a single person asking if I was okay. In that moment, clarity washed over me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation. It was about saying no more to people who saw my boundaries as inconveniences and my generosity as weakness. One click, that's all it would take. One click to end the exploitation. One click to reclaim my self-respect. One click to show Amanda that actions have consequences. I took a deep breath and pressed the button. The bank app asked if I was sure I wanted to cancel my card. I confirmed, then took the additional step of reporting the card as compromised. ensuring that any pending or recurring charges would be declined. I also logged into my bill pay service and cancelled all scheduled payments to wedding vendors. It was done 1:00 a.m. on a Thursday morning, 6 weeks before what was supposed to be the society wedding of the season, and I had just pulled the financial rug out from under it. I expected to feel guilty. Instead, I felt a profound sense of relief, as if I had finally put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for months. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Calls, texts, voicemails, emails all pouring in simultaneously. I silenced the phone and took my time getting ready for work, practicing the self-care my therapist had been encouraging. When I finally checked the messages, they followed a predictable pattern. Amanda's texts evolved from confusion. The florist says, "Your card was declined, call me as soon as possible," to anger. "What the hell, Valerie, fix this now," to threats. "If you don't fix this immediately, I will sue you for everything you have." There was a voice message of Amanda literally screaming about how I had ruined her wedding and her life, using language that would have shocked our mother. Speaking of whom her call came in next, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Valerie Grace, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you will call Amanda right now and sort this out. I raised you better than this petty, jealous behavior. My father's contribution was a brief, disappointed email. Family supports family. Period. Call your sister." I responded to none of them, going about my workday with a strange sense of calm. My colleagues noticed the stitches on my face, which I explained away as a minor accident. No one questioned it further. That evening, as I was making dinner in my apartment, there was an aggressive knocking at my door. Through the peephole, I could see Amanda Jackson and both my parents standing in the hallway. Amanda's face was blotchy from crying, and my mother looked as if she was barely containing her rage. I considered not answering, but I knew this confrontation was inevitable. Better to have it on my territory where I could ask them to leave if necessary. When I opened the door, they pushed past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. Jackson positioned himself near the door, arms crossed as if to physically prevent my escape. Amanda stood in the center of my living room designer handbag, clutched like a weapon. "Fix this," she demanded without preamble. "Call the bank, reactivate the card, and apologize to all the vendors for your mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," I said calmly. "I deliberately cancelled the card and payments because I'm done being used." "Used?" Our mother stepped forward, incredulous. "Your sister honored you by asking you to be part of her special day, and this is how you repay her." "She didn't ask me to be part of her day. She asked me to pay for her day. There's a difference." "We had an agreement," Amanda said, her voice shaking. "You offered to help with expenses." "Help with expenses, not cover $120,000 of extravagance, while you and Jackson secretly bought a house in the Hamptons and planned a luxury honeymoon. Help with expenses, not be physically assaulted and humiliated in public." "It was a tap, not an assault," my mother interjected. "Don't be so dramatic." I touched the stitches on my face. "I have a different definition of tap than you do, apparently. One that doesn't require medical attention." "I apologized for that," Amanda said quickly. "Actually, you didn't, not once." Jackson cleared his throat. "Valerie, whatever issues you have with your sister, we had a verbal contract. My father's lawyer says we have grounds for a lawsuit for breach of contract and damages." Something about his smug confidence, the way he thought he could intimidate me with legal threats, broke the last of my restraint. I walked calmly to my desk, retrieved my laptop, and returned to face them. "I have something you should see." I played the recording of Amanda admitting she never intended to repay me, followed by screenshots of her text conversations, mocking me, and finally her Instagram posts claiming she was paying for everything herself. "I have copies of every statement, every charge, every text, every social media post," I said quietly. "I have photos of my injury requiring stitches, and the boutique has security cameras that I'm sure captured the assault. I also have the original written agreement specifying repayment terms, which you've made no attempt to honor." The color had drained from both Amanda's and Jackson's faces. My parents looked stunned, glancing between my evidence and their golden child. "If anyone has grounds for legal action, it's me," I continued. "Diana Williams from Frost & Martell thinks I have an excellent case for fraud since you deliberately misrepresented your financial situation to induce me to pay for things under false pretenses." Amanda's composure cracked entirely. "So what?" she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "So what if we could afford more than we let on? You have the money, you have no one to spend it on. No husband, no boyfriend, not even a pet. Were you saving for that's more important than my wedding day?" Her raw selfishness shocked even our parents into momentary silence. "The Hamptons house was going to be a surprise," Jackson offered weakly. "We were going to invite you for holidays." "No, we weren't," Amanda snapped at him. Stop lying, I turned to my parents. Did you know about any of this, the lying, the secret house, the way they've been mocking me behind my back? My father looked genuinely troubled, but my mother's expression hardened. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Amanda's wedding is in 6 weeks and you've just destroyed it. Whatever your grievances, this is not the way to handle things. She's your daughter and she's getting married, my father added. That should be more important than money. I stared at them, truly seeing them for perhaps the first time. This isn't about the money, it's about respect. It's about family treating each other with basic human decency. What do you want, Valerie? My mother asked impatiently. An apology, fine. Amanda, apologize to your sister. Amanda crossed her arms. I'm not apologizing for anything. She's the one who ruined my wedding. She's the one who should be begging for forgiveness. I took a deep breath. Here's what's going to happen. I will not be reactivating the card or resuming payments. You have 2 choices. Acknowledge what you've done and the harm you've caused, or accept that our relationship is over. Are you seriously giving me an ultimatum? Amanda looked incredulous. I'm setting a boundary, something I should have done months ago. What happened next was ugly. Amanda launched into a vicious character assassination, bringing up every insecurity, every awkward phase, every failed relationship I'd ever had. She mocked my weight in high school, my career choices, even the furniture in my apartment. She was determined to wound me as deeply as possible. Through it all, I remained silent, letting her venom spill out in front of our parents, and Jackson, whose expressions grew increasingly uncomfortable as Amanda's true nature revealed itself. You think anyone would want to marry you? She finally spat. Look at you, plain, boring Valerie with her spreadsheets and practical shoes. You'll die alone, surrounded by calculators and budget forms. I'd rather be alone than with someone who only values me for what I can provide them, I said quietly. And I'd rather have practical shoes than walk all over the people who love me. I turned to my parents. You've made your choice clear for years. Amanda is your priority no matter her behavior. I've accepted that, but I won't accept being treated this way anymore, not even by family. Especially not by family. My mother started to speak, but my father touched her arms, silencing her. Something in his eyes looked almost like respect or perhaps regret. Please leave, I said, moving to open the front door. All of you. There was a moment when I thought they might argue further, but something in my expression must have conveyed my absolute resolve. One by one they filed out Amanda, still muttering threats about lawsuits and ruination. As the door closed behind them, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. A chapter of my life had ended, but perhaps a healthier one could now begin. On what would have been Amanda's wedding day, I woke early half expecting to feel guilt or regret. Instead, I felt an unexpected sense of freedom. I had arranged to take 2 weeks off work originally to help with last-minute wedding details and recovery. Now, on impulse, I booked a flight to Bali, a place I had always wanted to visit but had never prioritized. The first few days away were hard. Despite everything I experienced, waves of guilt and grief over the family relationships that seemed irreparably damaged. I questioned my actions, wondering if I had overreacted or if there had been a less drastic way to handle the situation. But as I allowed myself to relax in the peaceful surroundings, practicing the mindfulness techniques my therapist had taught me, clarity gradually replaced doubt. I had not created this situation. I had merely refused to continue participating in it. In my resort, I met a group of travelers from different countries, all exploring Bali alone for various reasons. We began sharing meals and excursions, and I found myself opening up about what had happened. Their outsider perspectives were validating and healing. Your sister assaulted you, took your money, and mocked you behind your back, said Margaret, a forthright Australian. In what universe would continuing to fund her wedding be the right choice? When I returned to Chicago, I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma and narcissistic relationship recovery. Dr. Lavin helped me understand the dynamics that had shaped our family for decades. Amanda as the golden child, me as the scapegoat, responsible for managing everyone else's emotions and needs. Children in families like yours often grow up to be caretakers, she explained. You're programmed to believe your worth comes from what you provide others, not from who you are intrinsically. The work was difficult but transformative. I learned to recognize manipulation tactics, to set healthy boundaries, and most importantly to value myself independently of what I could do for others. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, I established limited contact with my parents. Our relationship was different, now governed by clear boundaries I was no longer afraid to enforce. They seemed uncertain how to interact with me at first, but gradually adapted to the new terms. We can talk about my work, my friends, current events, I explained. But I won't discuss Amanda, and I won't tolerate any criticism of my choices or comparisons. My father adapted more readily than my mother, occasionally calling just to chat about neutral topics. I sensed he had his own regrets about the family patterns he had enabled over the years. A year after the cancelled wedding news filtered through to me that Amanda and Jackson were having serious marital problems. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were fighting primarily about financial deception and control. Apparently, Jackson had hidden significant gambling debts while Amanda had been secretly running up credit cards. When their divorce was finalized 6 months later, Amanda moved back in with our parents. Her carefully curated social media presence scrubbed of all references to Jackson. According to my father, she was regrouping and planning her next chapter. That next chapter apparently involved reaching out to me. Her call came on a random Tuesday evening, her voice uncharacteristically humble. "Valerie, hi, I know it's been a while." I remained silent, waiting. "I've been doing a lot of thinking and I owe you an apology for everything that happened with the wedding." The apology that followed hit all the right notes but somehow still rang hollow, especially when it led to, "I'm trying to get back on my feet financially. I was hoping you might be able to help with a small loan, just until I find a new job." The old Valerie would have said yes, eager to repair the relationship, desperate for approval. The new Valerie simply said, "No, I can't do that." "But we're sisters," she protested, the familiar manipulation creeping back into her voice. "Yes, we are, and that's why I'm saying no. Lending you money has never been healthy for either of us." There was silence, then a click as she hung up. We haven't spoken since. Interestingly, my parents respected my decision, perhaps finally seeing the pattern themselves as Amanda repeated with them what she had done with me. My mother even called once to ask hesitantly how I had found the strength to say no. It wasn't about strength. I told her it was about self-respect. The holidays, once a source of anxiety and obligation, became opportunities to create new traditions with my chosen family of friends. I started hosting Thanksgiving dinners, inviting colleagues, neighbors, and friends who couldn't travel home. These gatherings, warm and free of the tension that had characterized family holidays, became something I genuinely looked forward to. My career thrived once I was no longer distracted by wedding drama and financial stress. The promotion I'd been working toward came through along with a significant raise and increased responsibilities. I renovated my apartment, not to impress anyone else, but to create a space that truly reflected me. I even started dating again more selectively and with a clearer understanding of what I needed in a relationship. The man I've been seeing for the past few months values honesty above all else and respects my boundaries without question, qualities I now recognize as non-negotiable. Looking back, I can see that cancelling that credit card was more than just a financial decision. It was the moment I finally cancelled my subscription to a family dynamic that had been slowly draining my spirit for decades. It was painful. Yes, I lost relationships I had cherished despite their flaws, but what I gained was immeasurable self-respect, peace, and the freedom to build a life based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries, even with family. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It is simply redirecting your energy toward healing and growth. I still have the small scar on my cheek from Amanda's ring, a reminder not of victimhood, but of the day I finally said enough. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to set boundaries with family? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to support more stories of healing and self-respect. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose themselves sometimes. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, true family respects your boundaries and values you for who you are, not what you can provide. Music.